Penny Fuller, and I am speaking to you through Rabbi Sol Solomon on Dave's Gone By on UNC Radio, and I'm going to talk about, I hope, my show with Anita Gillette at 54 Below in New York City. It's called Sin Twisters 2.
Oh, shalom, shalom, my friends, shalom, my enemies. This is your old pal, Rabbi Sol Solomon, the founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And my life is pretty full at the moment, but my life is about to get fuller, as is yours, because we have the delight of talking to an Emmy-winning actress, a two-time Tony Award-nominated actress, also a talented songstress as well. Her name is Penny Fuller. You can see her performing at Feinstein's 54 Below with her good pal Anita Gillette, who is also a friend of the neighborhood. But right now, on the telephone with us all the way from New York, please welcome Penny Fuller. Shalom.
Shalom, hello. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello to you, too. You're not Jewish, right?
No, I'm not, but I know probably more Yiddish than some of my Jewish friends because I have so many Jewish friends, and so I feel like I'm an honorary Jew.
And you're in the theater, so either you're going to be gay or Jewish or both. Yes, that's the... So wait a minute, so what are some Yiddish words that you know?
Something like "Don't hack me a China."
Oh, that's very good. Which tell the people what that means.
I'm not sure. Something like don't give me a lot of stuff here.
Yes, it's kind of literally being stop banging a plate on me. It's like leave it alone, let it go. Stop annoying me with this already. That's
right.
Don't hack me a China.
Mishigas and. I'll probably come out while I'm talking. I can't think of anything now that I'm asking, but Mishigas is really good, and...
Mishigas is nonsense craziness, yeah?
Yes, there's another one. Doris Roberts said, that's not Jewish. I said, yes, it is, and it is, but I can't think of it right this minute. Doris Roberts, the wonderful, you know who I mean, Doris Roberts.
The actress from Raymond, right?
Ray Romano, what's the name of that?
Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yeah, right. And she said, I can't remember what it is, but it'll come out probably.
She probably called me a schmuck at one point. That would be Jewish.
I know that. I know that. I know a lot of them.
Oh, good. Okay. We'll probably hear them during this interview with the delightful...
Oh, and Spilkis.
Spilkis. Oh, tell us what Spilkis is.
Spilkis is kind of like frisson in French, isn't it? It's like I'm getting... Isn't that what it is?
Well, you're kind of a little bit on pins and needles. You can't sit still anymore. If you're sitting through when I did my one-man show, Shalom Damig, a couple of years back, half the audience at Spilkis is like they wanted to be anywhere else than watching me. So
yes, and I didn't know about it, so I didn't see it. So I didn't have Spilkis either. Oh,
this is true. And by the way, nobody will get Spilkis when they're watching you and Anita Gillette do your show together at 54 Feinstein. What is it called? Sin Twisters 2? Explain.
Well, Sin Twisters. People all our careers have always mistaken us for each other. Now, it makes some sense earlier because I was in Barefoot in the Park with Robert Redford, and we remained friends. And one day, maybe a couple of years later, he said, "Why don't you dye your hair red?" Well, if Robert Redford says dye your hair red, what are you going to do, not dye your hair red?
Okay.
So I dyed my hair red, so we looked even more alike and we were always up for the same parts. And so one day we were at a Christmas party. You know what that is, Rabbi?
Christmas? It sounds terrifying, quite honestly.
Right. So we were at a Christmas party at Len Cariou, the original Todd's house.
By the way, he's doing a concert as we speak now in New York, too,
Yes, and it's fabulous. Remind me to tell you about that when I'm through, because it's wonderful. I've seen it twice so far. Anyway, Anita and I were at the party, and we really didn't know each other. This was only about maybe 6 or 7 years ago. We had a glass of wine, and we were in the hallway, and we were leaning up against the wall, and we started talking, and we sort of slid down the wall with our legs across the hallway and sat and talked for the first time in our lives, and we came up with the idea of doing this show. Also, Barry Kleinbord, it was really more his idea. Barry Kleinbord is the man who has worked with and directed and Len in his show, the Broadway and the Bard. So, but we came up with this idea of Anita and I of doing something about how we're always taken for each other. And even today we are. Even today. Even though I'm now back to my original blonde and she's still redheaded, but I'm 3 inches taller than she is. But they've got, on her IMDb page, there's a picture of me.
Really? Oh, my God.
It's hysterical. And people said to her not too long ago, I loved you, and applause, Anita. I mean, Penny. She said to her, and somebody called me Anita the other day. I mean, it's insane.
You are Anita,
so we
and
decided
not
to do
Penny.
a show about it.
Well, that's but you already did one. If this is 2, that means.
But this is yes, it is 2, but it's TOO.
Okay.
Which is more that, that one was more about, we're going to end up in this one a little bit more why we are alike. That one we kind of went, they're both about how we are alike and how we're not alike.
Well, how are you alike first, and then I'll ask you how your name.
Both. She came to New York as a singer wanting to be an actress, and I came to New York as an actress who sang sometimes, but not really. And but we began to work, and we kept getting called up for the same things and playing the same things or competing for the same things. I was the standby in the original cabaret for Sally Bowles, and 2 years later, she took it over, and she played the lead. We have done, we've done classics. She's done The Seagull by Chekhov. I've done The Seagull by Chekhov. And we're always, we're up for the same parts, or we were anyway, up for the same parts as young people and playing the same parts. She did California Suite on the Road or somewhere, and I did it on the road, Neil Simon's cat, and she got, we've both worked for Neil Simon. It goes on and on.
Oh, the same thing happens to me and Ryan Seacrest. I don't
does
see
it really?
Yeah, it happens. We both go up, and then they come to me, Mr. Seacrest, and I'm like, no, I'm the Jewish one, and they leave me alone.
Right. Well, now when I meet you in person, I'll know you're the Jewish Ryan Seacrest.
Unless you're watching TV, and there I am on New Year's Day.
That's right.
So how are you unlike from Anita Gillette?
Well, as I say, I'm more theoretically of an actress. And she's more of a singer, but she got her Tony nomination for being an actress in Neil Simon's Chapter 2, and I got one of my Tony nominations for being a singer in Applause. We're also unalike because she's the funny one, and I'm the straight man.
You're the straight person?
Yeah.
That's no offense, but I'm shocked.
But then every once in a while, I'll sneak in a zinger if I can.
Oh. Another vodka stinger? No, just kidding.
Yes, hello. And how else are we not alike? Well, she has 2 children. She had 2. She was married much earlier than I, and her children are older than my child. We're both grandmothers now.
Oh, mit Mazel, mit Glück.
Huh?
That's a Yiddish thing. Mit Mazel, mit Glück, with luck and happiness and stuff. Yeah.
Oh. Thank you. Grazie.
You're welcome.
She has 2 grown sons, and I have 1 grown daughter. So we're different like that. And she has an English boyfriend.
Oh.
Not boyfriend, a gentleman friend.
A friend with benefits.
I have always. Well, actually, I had 2 at some time in my life, but I've always wanted to live in England, and she goes over there a lot, but she's not willing to live in England yet. Anyway, and my daughter married an Englishman, so it's a conspiracy.
Oh, I see that. Wow. We are talking, by the way, with Penny Fuller here in the neighborhood. So many questions to ask about your career in the theater. We might as well start with Applause, where you got your first Tony nomination. Applause, of course, was a vehicle written by Kander and Ebb, essentially for Lauren Bacall, who starred in the show. She seemed like a really interesting, fun, albeit difficult character. What was she like?
Well, before I tell you that, I hate to correct you, but it was not written by Kander and Ebb.
Oh, it's Strauss and...
By Strauss and Adams.
Oh, sorry. Oops.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Okay. Well,
you're taking my equity card away for that now. Oh, well.
Yeah. Well, here's the story of Laura Bacall. She, this was her first big break. Well, she'd been not her first big break, a big break at a special time in her life. And I had auditioned for the show. I was living in Los Angeles, and I had auditioned for the show, and it was down between me and someone else. And they took the other person. So I went back to Los Angeles and did a television pilot and blah, 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 blah. And one day, as I was having my hair washed at O-Ray's Beauty Salon on Santa Monica Boulevard.
Oh, I know it well. Just kidding.
Oh, yes. And my head was in the sink. When they were rinsing my hair, they brought the phone to my ear, and my manager said, they want you to fly to Baltimore tonight. Take over, to look and see if you want to take over Applause.
Whoa, what happened?
I flew, and I looked at it, and I thought, I see what I can bring to it. And so they had not told my predecessor that she was not going to continue yet.
Ouch.
But they wanted to hear what I said. And then so I went to meet Bacall. This was Saturday night. I saw the show. Sunday I saw the Bacall. And I said, dear God, it's actually the same God, Rabbi. I said, please let her know that if I'm any good, it'll only be help her, and because I didn't know whether she'd think, whatever. And not only did she embrace me, but we became the best of friends.
Oh.
She was fantastic. And all the kind of scary things you hear about her, all the kind of snarky things were all, in my opinion, from fear. When she was 19 years old, she was plucked to be the star opposite Humphrey Bogart. Wouldn't you be scared?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So she was a great gal, and we were in the play for, I guess, a year. She left, and then I joined them on the road in Los Angeles and San Francisco and played it again. And the night I came into the show, she's supposed to be looking at me rather skeptically, and the voiceover is Eve, you little Miss Evil. And I looked to say, and it's all gone, all because of Margot Channing. That was her character's name.
Right.
And I turn, and she's supposed to be looking at me like, and she's got this great big smile across her face because she was so glad I was there. Yeah.
I have to say, the host and producer of this radio program, Dave, he met her once or twice back in the day when he was a theater critic, and he would go to the drama desk things in the Irish Critic Circle, and he would see her, and she was foul-mouthed as hell, but she seemed like a lot of fun. She didn't seem mean.
It was a lot of fun, but a lot of that gruff stuff was, I think, fear. I mean, covering up for the fear so that you wouldn't know how scared she was.
Wow.
That's my theory.
Now, you also mentioned, I might as well say, rolling back even before Applause, that you were in Barefoot in the Park with Robert Redford, and you became pals with him when he was... Are you still friends, or is it like a Christmas card?
I haven't seen him in a long time, but the last time I saw him was in a restaurant, and you would have thought I was his, best friend. I mean, he's just wonderful. And I have to say, Robert Redford and Meryl Streep are the biggest stars I know, and I want to say they are both everything you'd want them to be. They're everything. The hero, you keep thinking, well, there must be some, something wrong with them. They're not. They're fabulous, both of them. I've worked with both of them. They're funny. They're irreverent to the right degree, and they are pioneers of the things that they believe in, and they follow through. They're great.
Can I ask what
talented.
You worked with Streep on what movie?
It was not a movie.
Oh.
She was a very good friend of Wendy Wasserstein's, and Wendy Wasserstein was a wonderful, one of our first great American playwrights who wrote of a certain era, and she'd written a play, and Meryl said, I'll do it in the workshop for you up in Seattle, because they'd been friends, and so we did it in Seattle.
That was An American Daughter, right?
An American Daughter. Wow.
Well, I do a little bit of homework. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And Liev Schreiber was in that, too, whom I just adore.
So,
you know who I mean, Liev? He's Ray, what's his name? Ray, that fabulous series. Ray Donovan.
Ray Donovan. Oh, yeah. Well, I know him from the theater as well. He was in Gary Revival and all that. But Streep did not come to Broadway in An American Daughter. That was... Who?
Kate Nelligan.
Oh, wow, okay.
Replaced by Kate Burton.
Burton, that's it. Yeah, that didn't sound right. Okay, Burton, okay.
But anyway, back to Barefoot in the Park. Okay. I was in a play up in Westport, and they said you can't go to the opening night party. You have to come back to New York because you have an audition to replace the understudy in Barefoot in the Park. So I went to, and it had been open maybe a month or two, if that. And they decided to replace the girl they had, and my agent said she will not be an understudy, she'll be a standby. And the difference in those days was that the standby could call in and say, I'm at home, here's my number, if you need me, call me. You didn't have to hang around at the theater. So I got the job, and I'd had I'd had 2 rehearsals on the second act when Liz Ashley's back went out. And I went on. I've had to do this every time. I had to do this in cabaret too.
Well, let me ask.
I took over in applause in 3 days. I don't know. I don't know why this has happened, and I don't know why I haven't been terrified. But I haven't. I just go on.
And is it, when you're thrown into a situation like that, is it, please, I just don't bump into the scenery, hit your mark? Are you even able to give a performance of any sort?
Well, that very first time I went on stage, and I did the first 2 things. This is Barefoot. And then I thought, I have no idea what's next.
Oh, God.
I'm like not even 2 minutes into the show. And I went to sit down on the steps. I remember thinking, if I sit down and cry and want to go back home to Lumberton, North Carolina, everybody will understand. And I went over and I saw the suitcase, which had the logs in it. I took the log out to put into the little pot-bellied stove, and I never forgot another thing.
Wow.
And I guess, I don't know, it's, they say there's a thing called Dr. Theater who comes and saves you when things happen. I don't know. In cabaret, I'd had 4 rehearsals.
I remember, was it Maud Maggart, the singer, mentioned Dr. Theater. She was mostly talking about when you have to go on with a terrible head cold, you've got pneumonia, you've got no voice that morning, and yet, boom, 7:59 at night, the curtain comes up, and Dr. Theater gets you through the next 2.5 hours, you know?
Okay, Rabbi, I have something to tell you.
Okay.
Maud Maggart would not be on this earth if it weren't for me, because her mother, Diane McAfee, is the girl I replaced in Applause.
Oh, my God!
Isn't that wild?
Wait, whoa. Well, now, wouldn't the mom hold it against you or something? Wait.
I don't think so. No. And Brandon Maggart, Maud's father, said to her once, that girl there is responsible for your mother and me having you. Yeah.
Because she wasn't in the show, she was able to stay home and shtup Brandon Maggart. Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
Talk about degrees.
Did you say what I think you said?
Shtup. I can say shtup.
You can? Oh, okay. I know what it means.
Well, I hope so. Shtup in the name of love before... Anywho, don't know what I'm saying. We're talking to Penny Fuller. As you can see, we're having a fabulous, delightful conversation. Now, someone who I imagine was not so delightful. You were in, briefly, a Broadway show, one of Richard Rodgers' last projects, a musical called Rex. I assume it was not a happy...
We're going.
What?
I know who's going with me. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, that starred a famous British actor, a brilliant British actor, but a very weird, difficult British actor named Nicol Williamson.
Yes.
And he had his problems on Broadway later on, where he was smacking Evan Handler in the tuchus and all that. What was he like in Rex?
Well, he slapped somebody in Rex too, but I'll tell you that after I tell you. He's gone now. He was a wonderful actor. He really was, but he was difficult. He really was very. I don't know what it was. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I think it was a cover-up for some kind of vulnerability. But he was very kind of tough and nasty and difficult to get along with, and he was carrying this show, which was difficult. I've just used the same word, but it was a complicated show, and it wasn't quite right yet. And it got a little better, but it never got totally fixed. It was a great idea, I guess. But he was cranky, and he was at that time not drinking anymore, only white wine.
Oh,
if
wow.
you get my drift.
Gotcha. Okay, so it was, yeah.
But one day, as we're doing the play, They did. We've opened on Broadway, 2 not great reviews, and they're trying to keep it open, and they decided to do a commercial on the show.
Yeah.
So Nicol said, I'm not doing it. So his understudy did, because it was going to be in the background anyway, the king and whatever. And we did the commercial, and then that night, as we're doing the show, we finished the show, and I come out from my bow, my beautiful curtsy, and I turn to lead and to, wave Nicol on, and I see him slap one of the chorus boys, and I hear them start to argue. And little me took, somehow, I got the strength, the Dr. Theater or whatever, and I grabbed Nicol and pulled him into the line, and we all bowed, and then the curtain came down, and then I heard some more yelling and screaming between the kid and him, and I turned and went up to my dressing room, and I honestly thought, I remember thinking, is this what the Germans did during the war? They just turned their back on what was going on and pretended like it didn't happen. I'm being just like that. That's what I remember saying to myself.
There is a different sense of scale here, perhaps.
Yes,
but
I think so. But I know, but that's what went through my head. It was so terrible that I was turning away from it and running away, even though it was not very important,
Oh, I know that feeling of like, I'm not getting involved. It's between.
Yeah, right. So it turned out that the kid had said to him, well, that's a rap, because he just learned that from the film of doing the commercial. But Nicol claimed he said, that's crap.
Oh, brother.
And it's okay if Nicol says that's crap, but the boy can't say that's crap, So that's where it all came. That's where that came from. But I saw him, I guess, once after that. I mean, he was a really difficult and gnarly kind of guy, but also extremely attractive. I've always been attracted to those sort of guys.
Was he nasty to you, or was he decent to you, though?
The world is terrible, and let me tell you what the world is really like. I mean, I've always thought that was interesting.
Well, wait, let me ask you, since you like those kind of men's, are those the men's
I like other ones, too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well, is your
me.
like the man you have children with, is he a good guy in between? Is he a surly Brando-esque type, or what?
I haven't seen him in many years, because we got divorced, because he was a neurosurgeon. Does that tell you a lot? I mean, what a neurosurgeon and an actress were doing trying to do this anyway. But he could not. I mean, this is a very interesting thing, and maybe you know more about this than I do. But he could not let me have my work.
Oh, he wanted you at home at 5:30 making dinner, being a housewife thing?
That too, but also there was a threat that I had whatever it was that was mine to do, whether it had been making pottery or something, it was mine.
And that threatened his status as king of the jungle, as it were.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it really did. His wife after me had the same problem. And she was a nurse, so they started out in a better gamble than the actress and the neurosurgeon.
Well, actually,
but she wanted to take tailoring lessons and do things like that, and he got very threatened by it.
Because you hear that actors shouldn't marry each other, because even though they understand the ropes, two actors are so self-centered that they're not going to be able to get along together. But you're saying, here you have two people from totally different worlds, and that didn't work out either.
No. Now, may I just beg the question here? What do you mean, self-centered?
Well, let's just say actors, the most interesting person in the room to them is the person staring at them from the mirror.
Why do you say that?
Well, as someone who has done some acting himself and who has been in the theater for a
Maybe that's just rabbis who are actors.
It could be. It could be. I hear you are taking, shall we say, you're in dudgeon over this. You are disagreeing?
A little bit.
Really? So, I mean...
I'm not saying it isn't maybe true, or not, but I don't think that is I'm always I always think when people think actors are self-centered, they don't really, it's such a generalization, and I think that means looking in the mirror is not necessarily the only thing actors do.
Okay, but how about actors? Let's put it this way. How about actors when they're still in their teens and 20s? Before
I don't know, I can't remember.
They've settled into themselves.
I'll tell you something, and this is going to be horrible. You can cut this out of the radio.
No. I'm not cutting a word. You can even use the S word.
I don't think this is pretentious because I don't mean it exactly, but I think actors are like priests or ministers. They have a message to deliver. Now, I'm not delivering my message because I don't write it, but I am the vessel through which the lesson or the message is delivered. And I think that's, in some way, selfless.
True. I guess the point I'm trying to make is either an actor is spending most of the day working on themselves, working on their body, how they look, how they feel. They have to concentrate on the way they move and what they're learning. And then the other half of the time, they're not even themselves. They have to go into play a completely different person. So it's almost schizophrenic in a manner of speaking. Oh, I don't even know what the hell I'm talking about. Okay.
No, I mean, I know that's everybody's, not everybody, but that's one view. But I don't know that that's 100% true. I think it's a little more interesting.
Okay, maybe it's not 100% true. I would say 95.
We made up, have we?
Oh, sure. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I don't want to fight with Penny Fuller. I want to talk to Penny Fuller. I want to hear, we were talking about Nicol Williamson in Rex. I didn't even really get to the point of saying that was a musical by Richard Rodgers. Do you have any stories about him?
Well, Richard Rodgers, oh, God, this is a terrible story.
Oh, good.
It's not really about Richard Rodgers as much. But he came up to me one day in rehearsal, and he threw a letter at me. And I read it, and my dear friend had been to see the play. And as I told you, the play had problems, and they were trying to solve them. And my friend, who was a playwright and a songwriter or a lyricist or a wannabe lyricist, had written him a letter saying, Mr. Rodgers, I think that if you looked at the fact and gave Anne Boleyn, I was playing Anne Boleyn and our little scamp of a daughter, Elizabeth, if you gave Anne Boleyn another song that would blah, 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 blah. She actually wrote this to Richard Rodgers. And I mean, I know she meant it in the best of, not trying to help Penny, but trying to help the play. But she wrote this to Richard Rodgers, why don't you write a song, blah, blah, blah. And he threw the letter at me, said, what do you think of that? And I mean, my first thing was to say, oh, my God, I'm so sorry, please forget. And then I thought, wait a minute, it's not my fault. I didn't write the letter. This is somebody who saw the show. So I got to a better place. But that's the first story that came to my mind about Richard Rodgers. But he was an extraordinary man. And I wasn't here for this story, but you will love this story.
Oh, boy.
A man that I worked with who was the production I think stage manager of all the early Rodgers and Hammersteins told me this story. He said they were all meeting at Rodgers' apartment to discuss with James Michener Tales of the South Pacific and what they wanted to do to make this musical South Pacific. And Hammerstein was there, and Michener was there, and Rodgers was there, and my friend John Fernley was there, and I don't know who else was there. And Richard Rodgers had his back went out, and he's lying on the floor talking, giving his opinions from there, all talking about, well, do you think this and what's that? He's lying on the floor because the hard floor was good for his back.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden he said, wait a minute. And he slowly got up, and he walked very slowly to the piano, and he said, and this is the first thing you'll hear when you go into the theater. Ba, 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 the high, da, da, da. Can you imagine being at that moment?
Oh, that's not a bad story at all. That's a wonderful story.
Oh, no, I know it's a wonderful story.
Oh,
I didn't mean to say it was a bad, if I didn't mean that.
Yeah. Of course, the lyrics were different then. He said, Ya Sol Schwartz! Ya Sol Schwartz. He changed it later to Bally High, but he was...
Yes, some lovely balmy island in Israel.
An East Side Story, which West Side Story almost was. Speaking of West Side Story and Stephen Sondheim, jumping to another genius, you had mentioned in another interview that one role that you had played that you would want to play again at some point is Desiree Armfeldt in A Little Night Music.
Yeah, well, I think the gods of time and the goddesses, well, they must be God.
Oh.
Here's my phone. It's going to interrupt, so don't listen to it.
I won't listen to it. Calling. I'll listen to you, yes.
Okay. So I don't think I can ever play Desiree again.
Well...
Loved every minute of it, but I did play. I have played the older, her mother.
You played Madame Armfeld already?
Yes, I played Madame Armfeld as well.
Wow, okay. What?
I'm next going to play the granddaughter, the little girl.
That would be excellent. I would like that.
And I will have played them all. No, I will. I could play the Countess. I could play the Countess, too.
Oh, you could also play the Count as well.
Yeah.
So, but what did you mean when you said that? Maybe the interview wasn't that long ago when you said that. What would you have brought differently to Desiree that you didn't the first time? Did you learn anything new? Did you some revelation come to you and say, "Oh, if I could do that again, I would do this now"?
It was more like this. The particular man who played Frederick. I found a moment in Send in the Clowns that I don't know I would play the same with a different guy.
Oh.
I was looking for something, I was looking for something to take that song and have it not be quite the way we all know it, But, and so I found this thing and it's not the way I would do it, I think, with somebody else. With this particular guy.
Well, who was he?
His name was Mark Jacoby. He was fabulous. But he was kind of loopy, if you know. He was kind of, I don't know.
Well, it's a loopy character. It's a loopy musical, a little bit. It's funny.
Well, yeah. And when we're sitting on there and I'm singing the song and I'm with all the thing, and then I look at him and I see, instead of thinking of my own stuff, as angry as I am at myself and everything, and I looked at him and I saw he was so pitiful, so childlike, so like a bad puppy. He just couldn't handle any of it. So when I said, "Don't you love farce?" instead of it being ironic and bitter and angry, I was trying to make him feel better for a minute.
Ooh, okay.
So I don't think I do that with the next person. But I think how you play it depends on who's playing it with you. Because, I mean, she's the irony of what's done. Finally, she's figured out what she wants and it's too late. But how she deals with that with each different guy,
Well, absolutely, and that's the thing actors can even do is night to night. Once you're in a long run, you can make that choice.
Yes. Listen, let me tell you something. One of my great experiences was when I was living in L.A., and I was part of a founding of a theater company called the Matrix Theater Company. And the concept behind it was, because we were all trying to make a living working in television, we would be in what was called equity waiver production, where we would play on the weekends. But they would cast every part with two different people. Now, not an understudy, two different of the same rather high status people, and preferably two different types.
Interesting.
And then we would rehearse it, and sometimes when we were doing the Seagull, sometimes Chekhov's The Seagull, sometimes Barbara Babcock.
Oh.
Barbara Babcock was playing. She was in that Dr. Quinn medicine woman with Jane Seymour,
right.
And she would. So she and her Goran would do a scene one way, and my guy and I, the other two, would watch it, and then we'd take what they did, and the next day we'd do the next scene, and they'd watch us. And then sometimes, because she was doing that show and I wasn't working, I'd call her and I'd say, "Barbara, you were at rehearsal today, but I found that if you go, I don't know if you want to use this, but if you go up to the front of the thing and you take the book off the thing," and she'd say, "Oh, that's great." So that's the way we'd create the part together, and then we'd get 2 opening nights from the New LA Times. And the week before Cast A would open, we would watch, and they'd play it for a week. And then the next week, they would watch, and we'd play it for a week. And then from then on, the producer put the cast together, and you never knew till you got there who you were going to play that night.
That is fascinating.
It was thrilling.
Yeah.
It was thrilling. It was, talk about being in the moment, and dealing with what's really going on. It was fabulous.
Well, not to get too technical, but is something like that still possible in L.A. now that they've changed the rules?
I think it may not be, and that's why a lot of my friends, it's very interesting. People say, well, that's it. You're not a professional if you're not. Well, I'm sorry. I think I learned more by doing that. I improved my art, my craft, my sullen art, or whatever it is, craft and sullen art, by that kind of thing, and you couldn't afford to do it. It's not a denigration of a professional. I don't think. It's very complicated, but they won't allow you to just work for like $40 a performance or whatever it is we got, 20 maybe. But it was like being in a class. It was like being in a warm swimming pool. It was fabulous.
And you get thrown in night after night, and you have to listen. I mean, if you haven't done it 20 times the same way, you've got to listen to everything the other person says.
Absolutely. We had one play where the leads were Robin Gamble, who is a short farce, very brilliant actor, but a brilliant farceur, and Cotter Smith, who's a tall, poetic, wonderful actor, and they were playing the same part. And somebody said, look at that. Robin stands and stays in one place till he knows where to move, and Cotter moves around until he knows where to stand. And that's the kind of creative stuff that we would do. It was fabulous.
It does. It sounds absolutely terrific. By the way, we're talking with Penny Fuller. I want to remind everybody, by the way, that you can go see her at the Feinstein's at 54 Below. I'm not exactly sure what the exact name of the place is these days. Is it Feinstein's?
Feinstein's 54 Below.
There's like a slash between them or something like that. And it's called Sin Twisters 2. It's a cabaret night with Penny Fuller and Anita Gillette. What are a couple of the songs that you guys are doing in this evening?
Well, we both have experiences with. We talk a lot about the great days, the golden days that we came in on the end of, and we both sing songs by Arthur Schwartz. I sing "Make the Man Love Me," and she sings "Magic Moment," and then we do wonderful. What's it called? Once Upon a Time, that Charles Strauss and Lee Adams wrote.
For the Apple Tree, was it, or something like that?
No, it's from
the Golden
Mr. President. No, not Mr. President.
Oh, maybe.
I can't remember. It's from her show. Something she did. I can't remember. And then we do "Pack Up Your Sins" and "Go to the Devil," which is a double song that Irving Berlin wrote. You know what I mean by a double song?
No, I don't.
Yes, you do. What's the famous one? You don't need analyzing. I hear music and there's no one there.
I gotcha.
When you're both singing two songs. Yeah.
So it's more than a medley. They're interweaved with each other, interwoven. Yes. Got it.
And Irving Berlin was the master of the double song, so we sing one of his called "Pack Up Your Sins and Go to the Devil." And then she sings... Anita sings, then we do a whole section of cabaret. Cabaret meaning the show cabaret.
Oh, well, that makes sense. We're both in it at one point, yeah.
So we do that, and let's see what else. Well, we tell about how we got to New York and our adventures of New York and her first audition and how we got our first job.
Well, actually, I want to spoil it for people who are going to the show, to see you on February 27th, to see...
24th, February 24th.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was... Forgive me. It is...
The 24th and the 2nd of March, Wednesday. 7.
Sorry.
At 7, that's where you got it.
My oopsies. Forgive me. So the first one is on this Wednesday, the 24th. But my question is, without spoiling everything where people are going to go see it, how did you make it from the South to Broadway, New York?
Well, I personally went through Northwestern University.
Ah, okay.
Where I had gone to school in the South. In my day, in those days, you couldn't be at the University of North Carolina, where there was a very good drama program, as a woman until you were a junior.
Oh, my, really?
Mm-hmm. So you either went to Women's College of the University of North Carolina, or you went to St. Mary's Junior College.
You know, I went to both of those, amazingly enough.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Well,
yes.
at St. Mary's, we had a song we'd sing about church twice on Sunday and thrice in the middle of the week. So I didn't like it too much at St. Mary's.
I can imagine.
To tell you the truth. So my mother, who did not go to college, said, well, why don't you go to some place like Northwestern? I said, where's that? She said, Chicago. I said, fine. And then I found out after I got there that one of the great teachers of drama ever was there. So that was a piece of luck. And I'll tell you something else. Another piece of luck is if you're lucky in your life, you have a great teacher. I had 4
Good Lord.
great teachers. Pretty piggy of me, wasn't it?
Well, who are they? You can name names.
Well, Alvina Krauss was this woman at Northwestern, and there's a lot about her. If anybody's ever interested in it, there's a lot about her on the internet now. You can learn anything. But she was this little tiny woman who put the fear of God into you, scared you to death, was mean as hell, but if you could get through her, you could get through show business in New York. That was basically, I think, her theory behind it, besides her very high standards. And then I studied with David Craig, who was Nancy Walker's husband. Remember Nancy Walker?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, David Craig developed a kind of a technique. During this time, it was when Rex Harrison and people like that were on Broadway. The non-singers.
Oh, the singing kind of a thing.
David created a kind of a technique that helped people perform songs better. In that, he said, you know what happens is actors begin to act terribly when they sing. Singers sing badly, and dancers lose all their rhythm because they're so nervous about singing because it's so naked in a way, singing.
Well, yeah.
And when you're singing a song, you're not saying he so much as I love you. I want you. I whatever, you know. So he developed a kind of a technique or a way to approach a song so that you were your best and therefore larger than the song in order to then deliver the song better. Making sense?
It actually is, and it's the sense of you don't have to sing it, just act it, just believe it and say it, and it will come out in rhythm and meter. Yeah.
But it's easier said than done.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So he found a way to help you do that.
Oh, you've never heard me sing, believe me.
Huh?
You've never heard me sing. You wouldn't want to. So that I should.
Oh, I did. I heard you sing a little earlier, didn't you?
Oh, that's my. I'm an understudy who comes in every time I have to sing something.
I see.
It's not a standby. They have to be there.
There was a man named Milton Katselis who was a Broadway director and a Hollywood director, and he taught while I was out in L.A., and he was an acting teacher. And then I had this wonderful, brilliant teacher/director named Diana Maddox, who taught me, furthered my understanding of how to do Shakespeare.
Well, Chicago has such a booming and wonderful theater scene. Why did you jump to New York? Why didn't you make a place in Chicago?
Well, first of all, I think back then, and that was some time ago, it didn't have that booming theater.
It was pre-Steppenwolf. It was pre-Goodman.
Second of all, everybody wants to go be on Broadway when you're young.
That's true.
You want to be on Broadway. That's where you were an actress.
Well, that's where I wasn't an actress, but yes.
No, but if you had been.
If I had been. So, what was your first audition?
What would you say?
I'm sorry, what was your first audition?
I think.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Therefore you are.
It was 150 years ago. But I think it was for the off-Broadway production of George Gershwin's OK revival. And the person, and after I did, I remember watching another girl's audition, and that was Linda Lavin.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, and we became best. We both got in it, and we became really good friends. She was my first. We were each other's first. Well, no, she was my first best friend in New York. She had already met Olympia Dukakis, so they were friends. But then she was my first person that was not that I hadn't known before, you know.
Wow. And we love Linda Lavin here in the neighborhood, too, because she has been a guest on this radio program of the air.
Oh, she is fantastic.
Now, you mentioned off-Broadway. I do want to ask, you were talking first about the Broadway musical Rex and Richard Rodgers and being in a new, difficult musical. You were in another new musical off-Broadway by one of our most major modern composers, William Finn. You were in A New Brain. And I'm wondering what it was like to work with him and what it's really like to be in not a revival of a show that, if they're changing anything, they may be cutting a line here and there, but a show that might be literally changing day to day. What is that like?
Well, first of all, I have to correct you again.
Oh, boy. Okay.
I'm so sorry. Lincoln Center is not really off-Broadway.
It was at the... was it at Mitzi Newhouse, or was it at the...
It was at the Newhouse.
Yeah, that's
not really exactly off-Broadway.
Okay, what is it?
Okay, I don't know what it is, but it's a different contract.
All right.
Okay, so anyway, but, I mean, Rex, they were changing every minute, too. And Applause, well, no, by the time we got here, they hadn't changed it that much. But working with, well, I guess this is idolatry, but I worship William Finn. I worship Phil Finn.
Okay.
Just a genius.
Well, yes.
And it was a very, very interesting process because this was the story of his life. He had a brain, I forget it's some funny long word. I should have known with the neurosurgeon husband.
Was it Schlemazel, is that the word? Or Michigas, perhaps?
No, some kind of brain thing.
Right, yes.
Not a brain tumor, but something like that. And they thought he was going to die. This is true. And Wendy Wasserstein somehow got a piano into the hospital where he was so that he could keep composing as he was preparing to maybe die. He had to have this terrible operation. And so he wrote these songs. They kept coming out of his head, and that's why she got him the piano there. So they found out it wasn't cancer. It was whatever this word is. I can't remember. Da-da-da-da-da-da-ma-my-osis. Something like that. I can't remember. It was in a song. And he wrote all these songs, and he put them together, and James Lapine said, I think we've got a musical here. So that's what A New Brain was based on, was this experience in Bill's life. And I played his mother.
Right. Well, you have, I think, for me, the best song in the show, The Music Still Plays On, which I think
Isn't that a great song?
It's a wonderful song, and you deliver it beautifully.
Thank you.
And so... so you had a great time working with him. I think Mary Testa was in the show. Who else was in it?
Mary was in the show singing another great song called Change, which is, she was a homeless person. She's talking about change, give me some change, but she's also talking about change.
Of course.
The larger word. And Bill is he's just brilliant. He's just brilliant. I'm just mad about him. Yep.
Now, one thing I didn't, I know we keep going back and forwards in time and things like that, but that's how I read the Torah, so it's
yes, that's normal. Right, you go backwards.
Yeah. Let me ask about the first Broadway show that you did. Very first was a one-night flop.
Right. You had to say that, didn't you? Thanks a lot.
Well, it doesn't matter now. It was 1962. It is 52 years ago, something more than that.
Okay. Yeah, I was the understudy again. I was the understudy in this play called The Moon Besieged, which was about, what's his name? John, I can't think of his name. The guy who was leading the guys out of slavery in Harper's Ferry.
I don't. Oh boy.
Yeah, John, I can't think of his name. Anyway, and so that was fine. So I was watching, and then one day they said, give her a costume and a hat. Give her a costume. She's going to be in the square dance.
Okay.
And I said, no, I don't want to be in the square dance because this will mean it's my Broadway debut, and I'm in the I'm not even in the show, and I'm in the chorus. And they said, okay, well, put you in a hat. Nobody will know it's you. But, of course, we did it, and we opened and closed in one night, and that was my Broadway debut. So I try to hide that.
Oh, well, I mean, you can't hide from...
that I went on in Barefoot in the Park and then took over. I took over Barefoot in the Park, and so my first Broadway show I was starring in.
I mean, you can't fool the Internet Broadway database. I mean, it is what it is. And then also,
what it is.
I have to say that, again, with not me, but the producer of this program, Dave, he wasn't friends with, but he was conversant with Lloyd Richards, who ran the Eugene O'Neill Center for a period of time. And Lloyd Richards was the director of that flop show you were in. Do you have any memories of him? Because he seemed like a really gentle...
I loved him. I loved him. He was wonderful. And he remembered me many years later, which I think is amazing considering I was mostly in a hat. John Brown. That's who it is.
Oh, John Brown's Body is the thing.
Yeah, now, that's what it is.
Another thing that you told another interviewer at one point, and I don't know if it was for that one night flop or it was somewhere else, is that you once got a really, really lousy review, and yet that taught you something.
Oh, yeah.
What did they say about it?
No, it wasn't that, because I didn't get reviewed in my hat in the square dance, for God's sake. I was hiding. No, this was my first really big job before I got on Broadway was the national tour of Lillian Hellman's play, Toys in the Attic.
Okay.
Very complicated play. And we were touring all over the country. Constance Bennett was playing my mother, and that wonderful British actress Patricia Jessel was in it, and Scott McKay, and Anne Revere was whatever that word is that you do when you do your role again. What's that word?
Well, revisiting maybe, or
Yes, revisiting.
Yeah.
And we were going to Toronto, and there was a very scary critic there named Nathan Cohen, and everybody was scared because he was vicious. And I don't remember what he said about anybody else, but he was not mean to me. So I just went, oof. Because I had learned as I went, this was a very important lesson about reviews. I would get, in one city they'd say, oh, the little blonde ingenue who was the only real organic performance in the show. And the next one would say, that little squeaky, horrible, squeaky girl playing the ingenue. So I learned it's an opinion, it's an opinion. Nathan Cohen gave me a nice review. Then I opened up the Globe and Mail, and it said it took Lillian Hellman 9 years to write this play, and Penny Fuller 3 minutes to wreck it.
Oh, my... Whoa.
So, you can imagine what I felt. And do you know, this was in the days when there were giants in the theater. The producer, Kermit Bloomgarden, called me up and he said, Penny, don't you let that review bother you. We love what you're doing. Just keep doing it.
Whoa. And I bet that phone call meant a lot. And you learned not to let the review mean so much.
Yeah, not to read them.
Well, do you read them when the show closes?
Read them sometimes afterwards.
You see, I was wondering if maybe once the show's over, it's done with, then you'll go back and you'll scroll, because it's unavoidable
and
now.
And I like to know if they're terrible, so I'll know why people are crossing the street to avoid me. I don't want to know what they say.
If
they say good, they say, oh, when she lifted her hand in that moment, I'll never forget. Well, of course, you can't ever do it again.
Right.
Because you're always remembering that with that comment. So the best thing is get the gist of it and forget it until it's all over. That's my lesson to give.
And what would be a lesson or an idea that you would give in our last couple of minutes together to budding actors and actresses and singers from the years of your experience? What would you tell if you were teaching a course or grooming young actors for the business? What would you suggest?
Well, I would say don't do it if you don't have to. And if you have to, then be very serious about it. Don't do it because you want a television series. That's another reason. If you want to be an actor, that's different from if you want to be a star of a television series and have a lot of attention to make money. Being an actor, you can also star in a television series, but being an actor is serious. And this summer, I was working at Williamstown, and they have a lot of young people who come and work there. They get to do all the dirty work, the backstage stuff, but they get to watch these plays being put together, and they cue you when you run lines with you, and then they had questions for us, and I said, well, I have a question for you guys. When you're taking all these master's classes, to be, God knows what kind of $100,000 or something, master's classes in drama. I said, do your people try to make you be malleable to be anything that might be needed, which is one thing you need to do, but the other thing is, do they support your individuality? Because that's what I find is missing now. Everybody's kind of the same. It's like the Red Skelton, Julie Munchin, all those people that came in an earlier time, it's like you don't have those anymore.
Well, yeah.
It's really so much of a different person. What is a star? Why do you want to go see that person? Because they were in a movie or because they have something special that appeals to you, like Olivier did, or Ingrid Bergman, or, you know what I'm saying? So I say, learn to be able to be as malleable as you have to, but don't lose the thing that makes you different from other people, too.
Did they appreciate that, or were they stumped?
I don't know. I think it took me a long time to get there. Somebody once said it takes you 25 years to become an actor, and then 25 years to learn how to forget acting, just be.
Well, what was it?
It's really tough. It's a tough road, but it is very rewarding if you can do it.
You wouldn't trade a minute, I assume.
No.
Well, maybe a couple of the minutes, but overall,
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade 1 second of the time that we have spent talking to the wonderful Penny Fuller. Please go see her with her sisters, quote unquote, Anita, Gillette, in Sin Twisters 2 is playing 2 performances. It's Wednesday evening, the 24th, and also on March 2nd. This is both at Feinstein's / or hyphen, or perhaps a parentheses, 54 Below.
At 7 o'clock.
At 7 p.m.
Get home and watch the news.
Oh, there you go. Yes, and you go there for an hour, 70 minutes. Boom. Last question for you. You had mentioned in another interview that, I don't know if you know them, I don't know if you believe in them, but theater superstitions. Do you not say the Scottish play? Do you have to do certain things?
Oh, I don't. If I say the Scottish play, if I don't say it, the Scottish play, or I'll say Sir Harry Lauder. That's what you call Mr. Scottish play.
Oh, I never heard that one, but okay. And other superstitions, you follow them?
Put your shoes on the dressing room table.
Right.
That I don't do. I mean, I don't know if I believe them, but I'm not going to risk it. And whistling in the dressing room, and whistling backstage. You know why? Because that had to do with sailing and dropping things, sails and things with a whistle. So, something like that.
Because these things, because the shoes on the table is all about, when soldiers were dead overseas, they come in and they bring their possessions and then throw shoes on the table. So
I didn't know that.
I'm assuming that was it. You got the person's possessions back and boom. So
I don't know.
They're dead.
I just would never do it,
Have you?
Just would never do it. I mean, you just never know.
And do you believe theater ghosts? Do you think that there are ghosts and things like that backstage haunting theaters?
Well, Shakespeare was supposedly appeared occasionally backstage at the Old Globe in San Diego. And I went back there one time. I said, "Please, Willie, please come. I believe, please, so I can see you." But he didn't.
Oh, he didn't? Oh, that's...
That doesn't mean he didn't say, "No, I'll come when I want to,"
I'm sure it wasn't Moliere.
I don't say no, but I don't say yes, but I don't say no,
Well, I hope everybody says yes to Penny Fuller and Anita Gillette in Sin Twisters 2. It has been just absolutely fun and delightful and so much joy talking to you.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. I've never spent so much time with the Rabbi. It was great.
Oh, well, hey, maybe you'll convert now.
I was going to say, maybe I'll think about converting.
And I don't even have to do a circumcision, so that makes it much easier. Yes, indeed. Shalom to you,
my dear.
And much continued luck and success.
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much.
Shalom to you.
Shalom to you.